You are watching Metropole Television this morning on the 29th of June 2020. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiege. This is Business AM. Today, we're about to tell you exactly what it is that you're waking up to in terms of the biggest economic headlines. Abraham Muthogo, the CEO Miradi Capital, is in the house this morning. Abraham, good morning. Fantastic. Let's attack the first story. Now, Equity Group Holdings has halted discussions on the proposed acquisition of the banking assets from Atlas Mara Limited in Rwanda, Tanzania and Mozambique in exchange for Equity Group Holdings shares. In a public notice, Equity Group Holdings says that the board of directors have considered events that have taken place since the public announcement of the proposed deal, and particularly the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic to both the world and the economies in which they operate. Equity Group Holdings Board of Directors says Equity Group and Atlas Mara reached a mutual agreement to discontinue discussions on the proposed transaction or a variant of it for the foreseeable future. Equity says that the withdrawal is premised on the need to refine the group's strategy amid the COVID-19 pandemic by conserving cash and liquidity and deploying it to support customers in existing businesses. Now, the withdrawal comes hot on the heels of Equity's decision to withhold the payment of a dividend of 9.5 billion shillings to its shareholders in the wake of the COVID-19 crisis. Equity Group's net profit for the year ended December 2019 grew by 13.8% to 22.6 billion, driven by increased interest and non-interest income. Now, the rise in profits from 19.8 billion in 2018 came on the back of a 23% growth in its loan book to 366.4 billion. Now, in the first quarter of 2020, Equity Group Holdings profit after tax for the first quarter plummeted 14% due to a tenfold increase in loan loss provision. Now, this latest move from the lender purely as a result of the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, we caught up with the Equity CEO, Mwangi, when he was at a CSR event, and this is exactly what he had to say about what is going on at Equity Bank right now. Let's take a look at that.
6 months into the COVID-19 pandemic, the blow of the pandemic continues to hit hard on businesses and individuals. It is against this background that the Central Bank of Kenya directed banks to restructure loans being serviced by medium-sized businesses and corporate borrowers by the close of June. Banks were supposed to meet all the costs related to the extension and restructuring of loans. With less than 6 days to the expiry of the CBK directive, Equity Group Holdings CEO Dr. James Mwangi says the bank's borrowers have nothing to worry about.
We have been approached by customers who hold 25% of the entire loan book of Equity Bank. And we asked themselves to evaluate what time they needed. So we never went with the 3 months, so there is no period that has expired. The shortest period we gave was 6 months. And the longest period we gave was 4 years. 3 to 4 years we gave to the hotels. Nobody knows when the hotels will reopen again, particularly in Masai Mara and Mombasa. And it could have been naive to give a hotel in Masai Mara 3 months. 3 months later, we still have the curfew. We still have the lockdown. So there is nothing. And even if the lockdown is lifted, it may take another 3 years before we get the first tourists flying to Mara.
Equity Group has equally been hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic, as it has also been forced to change tact on payment of 9.5 billion shillings in dividends to shareholders, as well as a halt on the proposed acquisition of assets from Atlas Mara. Dr. Mwangi says the bank has chosen to limit its risk and direct all its focus to existing assets and customers.
COVID has created an environment that is so uncertain, so unpredictable, that you can't make a strategic plan, because every assumption you make, you are not sure whether it will hold. And we felt it was prudent to then stop the transaction and say there will be another time. There will still be another time. We have not lost sight of our strategy to become a Pan-African bank, but the timing is not right. And let's focus. You can see the commitment we have taken of protecting the customers we have. Let's not, essentially, let me say, we managed our ambition. Manage your ambition. Know when to jump and when not to jump.
Dr. Mwangi said this during an inspection tour of a local manufacturing facility that specializes in making personal protective gear based at the Athi River Export Processing Zone.
The entire items costed 660 million shillings. And we said we can work on this. We are private sector. We know how to multiply money. We are entrepreneurs. And I'm glad to say the same order, we have managed to deliver it at 220 million shillings. So essentially, we have only spent 30% of what we had thought we could spend. At that time, we had made a commitment that the 1.1 billion shillings that Equity Foundation had managed to assemble, together with the support from COVID, would last the country for 6 months. I can stand before you today and say we are confident we'll be able to support.
Fantastic. Those are the sentiments of James Mwangi, the CEO Equity Group. Fantastic. Ooh. But I want to ask you though, Abraham, how uncertain is he on exactly what is happening around this COVID-19 environment? I want to point you out to his competitor. We're talking about KCB, which is leading in terms of the amount of loans they have restructured. Number one, they did cancel the dividend. No. You would like to think that Equity, the biggest move they would have done is just cancel the dividend and that will be it, so that they continue exploring the other investment options. Is this a case of Equity or a case of the market sentiment right now?
You see, KCB and Equity, those are two different banks.
Yes.
But he's right in one thing. COVID has brought an uncertainty at a new level.
Yes.
Because, and he's right, we see when you're doing a strategic plan, there are certain assumptions you put in. You look at your macro environment and try and predict what the future will look like.
Yes.
Right now, nobody can. Nobody can. Nobody knows what it looks like, how much. So what they're basically doing is they're saying, and don't forget, they're not paying because they can't. The cash they are supposed to use is still there. But they're saying, we don't know how long this will last. We have this money. I think it's better we keep it.
Yes.
Let's see how far it can push us.
Yes.
He said something else. What most banks are doing, and I think and Equity is not any exception, they are consolidating rather than expanding. So you're looking at the clients you have and consolidating. By consolidation, I mean the ones that are doing business that is in essential services like in medical and in food, you try and grow your book marginally there.
Yes.
But the ones that are struggling, like now you've had the hotels, you see they're giving them 3 to 4 years.
Yes.
So you look at ways of reducing because what they are trying to reduce is their provisioning cost. Because at the end of the year, and with the IFRS 9, the quality of book will be decided on how that book will be performing.
Yes.
So they're trying to look at how do we reduce our provision cost at the end of the year, vis-a-vis while we are at it, since the areas that are now shown to be essential, the food, and that's doing well, can we expand in that? But in terms of going Pan-Africa, yeah, he's right. Maybe they could have decided let's proceed or stay, but I think they've decided to stay because they want to conserve their cash.
Yes. Because
they do not know how far they need to keep the cash they have. And don't forget, this year will not make banks money. That's for sure. By the time we're doing December, whatever money they'll have made, most of it will go to provisions. Mm-hmm. And also there'll be the most likely be diminished interest income.
Yes.
Because a good chunk of the interest will have to be suspended.
Yes.
Suspended of course internally. So it's not a very good year for banks, the outlook. So that's why you see they're suspending their dividend payout. Yes, they were willing to pay it, they have the cash, but they're like, you see what, let's not pay what we need to pay. So you can already see a situation whereby they're already starting to ride on their creditors. And that's what happens when you in a situation where you're uncertain, you hold on to what you have.
Yes. And
as he said again, and he said very well, you know when to jump and when not.
Yes. Yes. Let's look at the first quarter, where the profits plummeted 14%.
Yeah.
Is that what is worrying Mwangi right now? Yes, you're profitable, but if you look at exactly where you're coming from, there's a negative 14 here in terms of your profits. Is that what is worrying Mwangi more than ever, other than the fact that he's even actually cancelling the dividend because he has the cash?
Yes, he has the cash.
Yes.
But as I've said, you see, that's only 14%. Now wait for quarter 2.
Yes.
Then quarter 3. It will go down, down, down. Why? Because it is multiple. You're not growing your income, and your provisioning cost is going up.
Yes.
That's a very bad combination.
Yes.
And that's going to hit all banks to an extent where we most probably might see some banks taking losses.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're about to finish quarter 2. Let's wait and see how the quarter 2 looks like. But by the time we get results for quarter 2, we'll comfortably predict how because the last 6 months will definitely be worse than the first 6.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
All right. Does it make it therefore a bit complicated by this extension of the measures to cushion the economy from the COVID-19 pandemic? Because we do expect now that banks are also getting a hit as well.
They are.
Yes.
You see, banks are the ones who get hit when everything comes home.
Yes.
It comes home to banks. Yes, CBK is trying all they can because they have a sector to keep afloat. But it will be kept afloat by those who have cash. And I think Mwangi knows that very well. Because going forward, you need cash to do a lot of things. Now, in situations of depression, in situations of recession, cash is always king.
Yes.
Because that's what restarts a lot of things.
Yes.
So for him, as the thing is, they've decided, you know what, let's consolidate what we have and get ready. Because it will get tougher. By the time we're doing quarter 3, it will be very tough because the income plateau. Because remember, most commissions have been waived. It's like now if you're removing money from your bank to your mobile wallet, it's free. So that's income that was waived. When they were doing their budgets, they had budgeted that they'll get income from there. So you see, so with all these measures going on, their income has been attacked very seriously.
Yes.
And then there's a provision cost that is kicking in. Not to forget that your assets are not generating the income or cash that they were supposed to.
Yes.
Given the macroeconomic
Yes.
condition.
Talk to me therefore. How do we digest? And you could actually get it in his voice. He's quite a concerned man.
Oh, he is.
How do you digest this news with the latest measures taken by the CBK? We have retained our lending rate at 7%. We do also are operating within the 4.25% cash reserve ratio. Yes. How do you interpret this too in light of what is happening right now?
You see, even now MPC has also joined the bandwagon.
Yes.
Of wait and see. You see, we don't want to.
That's how you interpret it.
Yeah, you don't
wait
want to.
and see.
Yeah, the wait and see. Let's give it one more meeting and see how it tied up. Because
Yes.
as he put very well, nobody really knows how this COVID risk looks like because it mutates every day. So everybody's trying to understand, and when you think you've understood it, there's a new twist to it. Mm-hmm. So from a financial perspective, you now start taking very conservative measures.
Yes.
You cut down on your growth. You keep your cash. And you only do those things that you must to stay alive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Just want to leave it there, Abraham, so that we move on to the next issue that we have for you this morning. Fantastic. Now, this is about the energy ministry, which I would like to say had planned, that I don't know whether to say plans, to declare force majeure on the Kenya Power generation contracts within the economy now, which will therefore mean that technically Kenya will not be bound to the existing pacts on payment of electricity from the more than 10 power producers. Now, the ministry has pointed out to the existing restrictions on business operation hours as a limiting factor to the operation of the Kenya Power and Lighting Company. Now, that has now been seen by analysts as a move that will weaken the financial muscle of the Kenya Power suppliers, something that is bound to affect the steady supply of Kenya Power, which will see businesses and homes on the grids they serve affected heavily. Now, speaking to a local daily energy CS, Charles Kateri maintained that they may not be able to meet their payment obligations, which will force the power generators to come back to the negotiating table. Now, Kenya Power posted a 91.98% decline in net profit to just 262 million from 3.27 billion for the financial year ended June 2019 on cost of buying electricity despite increased revenue. Now, this year, the company has already issued a profit warning on the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic on the economy's consumption of electricity. Good. Now, the plans were later last week abandoned by the ministry in unexplained circumstances. Question now for Abraham. Are we trying to find an easy way out for Kenya Power? And most importantly, non-performing government agencies.
You see, this is a very scary and very dangerous for Kenya as an energy investment destination. And I say this very deliberately. You see, the moment we go this route, yes, most kind of these contracts, they have force majeure. And for the record, force majeure can work both ways. Even the power producers can also invoke the force majeure.
Yes.
Because the power production contract says you shall produce so many megawatts. If you don't produce them, you pay us.
Yes.
And they also tells Kenya Power, if you produce it, you shall buy it from us at 10 cents per kilowatt hour, USD per kilowatt hour.
Yes.
So Kenya Power is saying, or rather the ministry, they're saying, we are unable to pay for this because of whatever is called, because there's low demand, whatever reasons they want to bring up. Now, as we speak, we're already in a situation, even before COVID, we're in a situation whereby we were in excess of 1,000 megawatts, excess supply, because our peak demand is about 1,800, 1,900 megawatts at peak demand. Our production, the power being produced is approaching 3,000 megawatts. So even with that alone, we are paying for 1,000 megawatts, which we're not consuming because, again, of the contract.
Yes.
So that now puts to question, how do we do our planning? How did we end up with this kind of capacity? So it means only two things. One, either we overshot our production targets and which are not turning with the demand, or whatever was to come in and demand this power has not been installed for whatever reason. So those are the possibilities. But to me now, the bigger danger for this is that the message is sent out there. Previously, and even as within my firm, we've dealt with several clients who come to Kenya to invest in these power projects, simply because they know the sanctity of that document. That it's a 20-year document with a fixed price and fixed tenor, and the guarantee to pay, come rain, come sunshine. Now, if we send this message that we can invoke force majeure as and when we please, then there'll be a pushback. So now then we'll have a problem when we'll need to grow our capacity. How do we get? And all these things, the investment is very high. In investment for power is anything between $1 and $2 billion per megawatt of production. So you end up that kind of capacity and that kind of investment requires certainty when somebody's putting the money, because they're putting it for a 20-year horizon. So if you're going to invoke force majeure, yes, there's no problem for invoking force majeure, but invoke it when you really must. I don't think we're in that situation. Kenya Power profitability is declining by the day.
Yes.
And I don't think it has to do with this thing.
Yes.
It has to do with other things.
Yes.
Probably, as you say, maybe we're looking for an exit out of it. Yes, it may work for now, but let's look at the future. Strategically, I think this is a horrible move.
Yes. Yeah. But which position are they finding themselves in? Abraham, from when you said this morning, you have a company that's coming from a 3 billion profitability to just 262 million. That's more than 90% drop.
Yes.
Are they not there now? And is that not the picture?
Yes, you see, and that's what we need to question. What is happening? And don't forget, how can a monopoly be suffering? They are the only people who can give you your last mile of power.
Yes.
Either you deal with them or you deal with them.
Yes.
So what is the problem? We need to find that out. So yes, we have contracts over 1,000 megawatts which we have to pay for and which are not making them money.
Yes.
But that's the nature of contracts. But see what we need to ask ourselves is, why can't they grow the demand?
I see.
The demand is, or rather, why can't they connect that part of those people?
Yes.
Because even Kenya now, we are nowhere near where everybody has power.
Yes. Our
industries. So we could do better in terms of making sure that capacity is consumed.
Yes. Does it send a warning that they're telling us the only reason that they're suffering is just the cost of buying electricity?
No, but you see, we got into this contract with our eyes wide open. These things were not shoved at us.
Yes.
The process of a PPA is so onerous and so long, because you have to go through to EPRA, you have to go to ministry, it's a very methodical system where and a lot of negotiation.
Yes.
So by the time you're signing your PPA off, there's been a lot of back and forth and a lot of strategic thinking put into it. So we are where we are by design. What we need to establish is where did the rain start beating us and why?
Yes. Interesting, therefore. I mean, We have a new boss in that office.
Yes, we do.
You'd expect that right now news like this will not be coming our way. Are we in the so much in the red that there's no way out for us now? Because this is a big thing. I mean, force majeure is big.
The force majeure is big, but you see, we've reached a point where every time we have a problem like this, we look at what we can cut.
I see.
I think let's change our mind.
Yes.
Let's look at Kenya Power is the only company that does last mile, which means they have the whole market to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Grow that market, supply that market, and close that gap between the amount of power you have to buy and not sell to anyone. Mm-hmm. Because if we do it properly, even 3,000 megawatts will not be enough.
Yes.
Because we just need to bring industries that consume heavy power.
I see.
And those are there.
Fantastic. All right, we'll leave it there for now. Take a short break, but once we come back, we are talking about KQ. Now, we do know that the House, as the National House, have been given a green light to discuss or to talk about the Aviation Bill 2020. We'll tell you what's in it there and whether that is exactly what our national airline needs now. Once we come back, we're still with Muthogo, the CEO, Miradi Capital. Welcome back. Yes, we're talking about this, guys, and you can see the headline that the renationalization bill has finally been tabled, and it was tabled last week. But remember, that bill is now called the National Aviation Bill 2020. Now, members of the parliament now have a green light to debate on the National Aviation Management Bill 2020 as the National Assembly looks to have KQ renationalized by early October. The airline, that is 48.9% owned by the government, has a 7.8% stake held by Air France KLM, which had the option of selling its stake to the government and staying on as a technical partner for the airline. It has opted to exit. Mr. Yatani, in an interview with the local daily, indicated that the consortium of local lenders who acquired 38% of the company's equity during the 2017 restructuring could be paid through government debt, possibly in a 10-year treasury bond. Now, banks with a stake in the airline will also convert their equity into T-bills, according to Yatani during the interview. Nationalization, which the Transport Committee expect to be concluded as early as October this year, will exempt Kenya Airways from taxes on engines, maintenance, and fuel, allowing it to sell cheaper tickets. Now, KQ was denied a $7 billion loan from Treasury after its flights were grounded as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, let's talk about the duration, Abraham. They're saying that it has to be done as early as October, making this one of the most important bills now that the National House has to discuss. Yes.
You see, okay, and it's good they're calling it the renationalization because this is where we started.
Yes.
KQ used to belong to government. Then that time was the wave where the whole world, it was a fashion, privatize.
Yes.
And KQ was no exception. Now we're back to where we started. It is important to note that it probably is the only way out. Because you see, we've been pumping money into KQ and it's not, something is not working.
Yes.
It's supposed to be. And I think what is not working was the fact that we were missing the component of the fact that KQ, as much as it's a financial asset, no doubt about it, but the economic component and the economic input of KQ to our economy cannot be downplayed or wished away. And that is why the government is bothered.
Yes.
Because KQ, to me, is more of infrastructure, even as a financial asset. So it has more economic returns to Kenya by far than the financial money we need to get from this.
Yes.
To me, I would have no problem if KQ is breaking even or making a small loss for as long as delivering what's supposed to deliver. Number one, delivers the tourism model for Kenya. That we have a good inbound model where we can have the tourists and bring them in here.
Yes.
And move them within Kenya through the KQ or Jumbo Jet.
Yes.
Number two, that it fits into our trade policy model. That we're able to ship out our commodities, we're able to ship out our produce to where it's supposed to go, both in terms of cargo and then in terms of, finally, in terms of our diplomatic policy.
Yes.
does it conform to what our diplomatic model and policy is? Are we flying to where we're supposed to fly to?
Yes.
Because there are places we'll fly, not because we make money, but because it makes diplomatic sense for Kenya as a country. Now, if you put those two objectives together, a person sitting at KQ purely as a financial guru or as a person with only a financial mind may decline certain destinations, may decline certain policies to do with trade, may decline certain models for tourism because they do not make financial sense for him or her. But as a government, the certain models will include that may not necessarily make money for us financially, but will make a lot of money for us economically.
Yes.
And this distinction is very important for us to make, that KQ is infrastructure. It is the gateway to this country. So when you hear them talking about October being urgent, it is very urgent.
Yes.
Because right now those birds are on the ground. We're just fumbling, converting some of them into cargoes and putting, that is Mickey Mouse.
Yes.
Let's get it right. Let's nationalize it. The model they're using to do T-bills and T-bonds, yes. For the banks, you cannot give them T-bonds because banks, all their liabilities are short term, so they have to be given short term assets.
Yes.
For the other investors like KLM, they'll be given T-bonds. And personally, I think it's good. I think it's good to part ways.
Yes.
Because initially that model was supposed to be that KQ hubs people within the African continent and takes them to Schiphol and leaves them there. And KLM takes them over from that.
Yes.
And KLM was do vice versa. Hub in Europe and the Greater Americas and bring them to Nairobi. And then we'll distribute. But if you look carefully, KLM was in our hair. They were everywhere. They were I've been to Kilimanjaro. Most airports so that model was not working. So that marriage was not convenient for KQ. So I think it's good that they are parting. Let them go. Let them be paid what they were paid. They go their way. Because I think at the end of the day, Kenya Airways has to serve national interest.
Yes.
And national interest is that for the Kenyan to benefit. Not financially necessarily, for economically. Because see, if KQ can deliver our flowers, can deliver our produce, can deliver our avocados, then even the guy, our farmer, is benefiting from KQ.
Yes.
You see, he may not be necessarily by a dividend, but it is enabling. You see, so KQ as an enabler,
yes,
is what needs to start kicking in our mind. Eventually, it will make money, but that should not be the main driver.
Yes.
Yes.
Pretty much. Let's talk about that just as we're clear on KQ Wars this morning. I mean, if you look at the way they've approached just paying off these guys who have a shareholding at KQ,
yeah.
Does it make you comfortable that the only thing that we've done is that we've just bought more debt into KQ?
You see, there is no other way out. You see, Kenya right now does not have a lot of money to give out to people.
Yes.
And again, and this is a point I want to make very clear here. Kenya is a going concern,
yes,
as a country. So for as long as, and debt per se, there's nothing, let's not demonize debt. Debt is only bad when it is done wrongly.
Yes.
For this particular case, we want to do a 10-year, a 10-year bond. A 10-year bond, if this is done properly, the kind of increases in taxes and in terms of economic activity that will be brought out of that will justify this debt.
Yes.
If it's done properly.
But Abraham, remember, yes, we're talking about it getting done properly, but renationalizing KQ doesn't mean that all of a sudden all its problems are pretty much scrapped off.
No, they will not be.
Yes.
But it will be a start. A start in the sense that it required capital. Its biggest problem was capital.
Yes.
Capital, once it has guarantee of capital, before that capital goes in this time when you are debating this national, part of that should be a restructuring of that organization.
I see.
The restructuring of that model. So I'm talking about, I'm saying of the model.
Yes.
That model needs to be thought out. Why is KQ not making money?
Yes.
Because if you look at its top line, it is still, the top line is still growing. If you look at, interestingly, cash, they're still generating cash.
Yes.
So we need to just find out what is the problem.
Yes.
And that will not take a long time to do.
Pretty much. But one thing has come out. It's the cost of the tickets. If you look at it with its competitors, I mean, they're saying that if you look at what Fly Emirates probably will give you, what Ethiopian Airlines will give you, it's way cheaper. And they're saying that if we exempt KQ from VAT on fuel, on maintenance costs,
which you can,
then you're pretty much now telling KQ you can actually sell more tickets because your tickets will be cheaper.
That is true. And you see, that view is coming from the fact that people are now appreciating that KQ is infrastructure. It's like a road. It's like a bridge. So why lump excessive costs on them? Waive them so that we do volume business.
I see.
Yes.
I see. Fantastic. Abraham, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Always lovely to host you. All right, now take Abraham back to the time that he came to the studio and he's saying, he doesn't care. The only thing he wants to see is KQ being an enabler to our economy. That once it can move us around, once it fits to that doctrine as to why it exists, even if they don't give us that money back, then we're saying that we're getting something out of it. Now we're waiting to see exactly what becomes of the Aviation Management Bill of 2020, and it won't be long. No, it won't be, because Ayatani expects that this will be discussed and finalized before October, because according to Abraham, things are thick at the airline. That we don't get it now, that means that we're actually digging a deeper hole for it. Also going by the fact that Yatani did say no to the request for 7 billion loan, meaning that he had a way out for them, and it's through the Aviation Management Bill of 2020. We'll leave it there at Metropole TVKE, taking back live on YouTube, and Twitter, and on Facebook. Take a short break, but when we come back, let's talk about animals.